Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and unfortunately, this is not the start of this reaction. This is, unfortunately, part of a much larger reaction. So if you want to start from the very beginning of the video, links to it should be in the top corner of the video, as well as in the description of the video, linking to it, as well as any other parts of the reaction if there are any. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's actually get back to the reaction then.
And the characters are so strongly characterized that I know a lot of players who just never want to hurt them. Toby Fox understood the strength of his character writing and not only hinged the game's story progression on it, but used it as the basis of a morality system that does not explicitly tell you you're a piece of shit for doing this, but makes you feel that way organically by seeing the consequences of killing and branding you with this ever-increasing number. I think the only time the game actively starts having characters call you a horrible person is when you've accumulated quite a few kills, and on major characters at that. And at that point, you're well aware of the scenario and the game layout, and are probably just doing it intentionally. Or even just to see what they'll say. But there's one other core RPG mechanic that Toby Fox decided to deconstruct in this way as well. If killing monsters and taking lives like any other video game makes you a bad person in this world, then you must ask yourself, what about grinding encounters to become stronger? Grinding was a core component of a lot of older RPGs that Undertale draws inspiration from, where you just walk back and forth, killing whatever you ran into because you weren't strong enough to defeat the next threat, or needed money to buy things. It was incredibly routine and part of the experience, especially back in the 90s before this magical thing called player convenience was a more normalized thing in the industry.
Player convenience, player convenience. It's like, you always gotta grind. It's the intended way.
In this universe, though, that already has these stringent moral qualms tied to taking the lives of monsters, encounter grinding would be this heinous act. And with the structure of the game, you never need to grind for anything. Money is plentiful and given to you in buckets for sparing monsters, and the game has built-in damage scaling so that Love 1 is never not enough to take on even powerful monsters like Asgore. So doing so, at this point, would just be a curiosity. And the game expects and understands that, and never once really lets on about what would happen if you just continuously killed not only everything you came across, but just kept going and going. And when you do this, you start to notice something. Monsters show up less frequently, with the space between encounters getting longer and longer. The game itself is actively encouraging you to not do this. There's no need to do this. But yet, you carry on because you, the curious player, want to see what happens.
God, you know, I remember the, I think it was in, like, maybe one of Shayy's, Undertale facts videos. But, the fact that the step counter resets when you leave and re-enter a room for, like, enemy encounters. And, like, just the thought of that in-universe being, Frisk left, and then everybody kind of relaxes, steps out, and then Frisk just immediately walks back in again. Like, that is, like, a horrible, but hilarious to think about.
And then, eventually, you get into another battle, but nobody came. This had to have been one of the most stomach-dropping moments I have ever experienced in a video game. It almost felt creepypasta-like in nature. This secret that you were never supposed to discover, that you had to go incredibly out of your way to do, that you had to set aside all of your morality to attempt, and the music completely vanishes and drops to this incredibly eerie drone. All of the colorful NPCs that dotted every area, all gone. The flavor text has all of the joy and whimsy sucked out of it. Any quirkiness replaced with brief examinations and nothing more. Every save point has the usual iconic lines replaced with just one word: determination. You've just stumbled into Undertale's genocide route, the ultimate commentary on the behavior of video game players, the ultimate deconstruction of RPGs, and one of the most unsettling video game experiences out there. Many people who talk about Undertale in the current year might not even remember that this route's existence isn't obvious, and is intentionally kind of obscured. Nothing ever tells you about it, only ever hints at it, and it's really up to you if you want to take Flowey's advice and extrapolate that to the extreme. But it also exists to satiate a natural curiosity. LV is a number that continuously goes up, so there has to be a maximum. The pacifist ending exists by saving everyone and helping everyone, so there must be an opposite. The game ingeniously pushes you towards the discovery of this route on your own and gives you, the player, the agency to make the attempt on your own.
Again, I think back to when the weird route was first discovered in Deltarune. And, at that point, everybody was still under the assumption it's like, oh, your choices don't matter. There's only going to be one ending, so... But then, word started spreading that there was, oh, Deltarune actually has a secret genocide route. Oh, what's happening? And you have to go to chapter 2. Oh. And I remember it was Half-Bred Chaos that, described it in a very succinct way. That it was very much like, the early internet where, like, these sort of, like, video game rumors were spread at first through, like, the schoolyard and stuff like that. It's through word of mouth. Like, I remember even when, a word and like, whispers of, of Snowgrave, started spreading, it took a while, a relatively long while, in internet time before anybody actually put a video out about it, because nobody was really quite certain about how to actually achieve it. And then later on, when chapters 3 and 4 came out, I am still, like, you could not convince me otherwise that we as a community were not supposed to actually learn about the Snowgrave route, or the weird route as it's properly coined, until chapter 3, because there is a lot of hints in chapter 3 pointing towards the possibility of the weird route and doing it with Noelle and stuff like that. God, it's just so different.
You never have to do it. This is an important thing to keep in mind moving forward. You can stop at any time. As you progress with this route, you'll find all of the hijinks and antics are replaced with vain attempts at the characters to try to have fun. Papyrus in particular has all of his puzzles completely fall flat as you just refuse to interact with them at all. The music becomes warped and slowed down, and monsters at this point barely stand a chance against your increased stats, with almost all of them dying in just 1 or 2 hits now. You have no real moral reason to continue this. Asgore would be a cakewalk at this power level, but yet the game smartly leaves a new breadcrumb for you to follow by adding an area kill count to save points starting now. This signifies without words to the player that there is an objective to clear at the end of all of this. The question is, do you have the stomach to kill all of your favorite characters? Papyrus is an incredibly beloved character, and the game knows that, by having him not even attempt to fight you. Instead, he offers himself up defenseless, boldly stating that he knows that you'll make the right choice and choose mercy. I know so many people who could not get past this. Not because it was difficult or frustrating or cheap. Not because they physically couldn't do it, but because they felt so bad about killing Papyrus, their friend, who was offering themselves up with no maliciousness. How many video games do you know where someone quits an objective because it made them feel bad? That is such an uncommon thing to happen. And I think it's an enormous accolade that Undertale should adorn on itself with pride. It got people to care about a video game character so much to the point where many people would stop here and abandon this route. You may remember how when LV and EXP were being explained, it was said the more the number increases, the easier it is to distance yourself. I think this is the single biggest moment in the game that puts that to the test. Because once you kill Papyrus, it's unlikely that you'll stop the route willingly from here on. This is the point of no return that the game was implying through its definition of LV, but how many games out there have a morality point of no return? It's such a unique thing that Undertale does, and it really sets this game apart in the writing department. What was present before was already incredibly strong video game writing, but this actively takes the fact that you are the player of a video game with this ungodly power to transcend time and existence itself, and manages to still wreck your emotions. What a game. This whole entire segment is honestly excellent. Once you complete the Snowdin area kill count, Snowdin Town goes dead silent. What was once a previously bustling town, even if you took a few lives in your other playthroughs, is now completely silent and empty. The previously quaint shop has all of the wares that you can steal for free, and just one note that you can read behind the counter. Please don't hurt my family. This moment is pivotal in really settling in that you are the scum of the earth. These people are absolutely horrified of you, sheltering away, begging you not to hurt them or their loved ones. You've gone far enough in this route that the writing fully understands that you're
You
doing this
are a
on purpose
monster,
and
yeah.
directly labels you as a
And
villain,
not the species.
a freak, a sicko. As you clear out the Snowden kill count, with the encounter space becoming longer and longer, you're not really fulfilling a curiosity anymore. Rather, Undertale uses this continuing grinding as more of a punishment to the player to really set in that they should not be doing this. Beforehand, the increasing space between encounters was being used as a curiosity and breadcrumbs to lead you to suspect that you were making progress. But now, it's being used to reinforce that you'll see this through to the end, even if it makes the game world empty and dark. Now, this point is contentious when talking about deeper discussion of this game. There's a lot of people out there who believe this aspect of the game is going too far into punishing a player for trying to see everything that the game had to offer. Because even though this is a commentary on that exact thing, it is still a video game that we paid for, that we are playing for enjoyment.
I mean, I can see that, but at the same time, it just comes to the territory. You want to go down the bad path, you're going to be punished for it. Who said the bad path was going to be easy?
I don't fully agree with this. I instead appreciate this incredibly unique writing for what it is, and I think it's such a unique way to engage with a video game. Additionally, I find that this part of the game does a really good job at setting a unique tone and making you feel like a full-on evil villain.
Oh yeah, exactly. The fact that it makes you feel like you're going out of your way to be as horrible of a person as physically possible.
As you track down weak monsters and kill them for sport. The payoff of the warped music in the desolate Snowden town, the absolutely heartbreaking Papyrus death scene where he begs you to be a better person with his dying breath, says he knows you can do it. It's all such a magnificent thing in my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, however, I think that this portion of the genocide route is where Undertale shows that even it is not a perfect game. Nothing is.
Mm-hmm.
I think a few aspects cause this segment to slip just a little bit. I've tried to talk about how I feel about this particular segment before, but it's usually marred by people misinterpreting me, or the point being difficult to convey in the limited time or limited character counts of social media. But if you're this far into this video already, I am going to assume you're going to hear me out in good faith.
Yeah, okay, come on.
1. Undertale's codebase has been famously poked fun at for the simplicity and sometimes extremely bizarre ways the game is programmed. However, despite all the quirks, they either add to the experience or never negatively impact a casual playthrough. This is really important to me. It does not matter for 99% of Undertale players that I could use the punch card to turn the game into mushy paste and cause it to collapse like a demolished building. The game always works casually, and rarely will people run into any kind of issues. In fact, I find that this game's programming is so rudimentary to be an incredibly motivating thing. One of the most iconic and influential games of the decade is nestled in if statements, and as someone who wants to make their own game one day, that is motivating in a way very few things are.
Mm-hmm.
However, this moment is the one time that the imperfections of Undertale's code rear their ugly heads. This entire Geno Snowden segment has some bugs, some of which have been fixed, but one of which is still in the present day release of the game, and it causes the music to return to normal after various cutscenes. This totally breaks the immersion and removes that unsettling factor, but more importantly, it gives bad feedback. Several of these instances are after cutscenes with Papyrus and Sans, potentially making you think you did something wrong or you made the wrong choice, when you didn't. This was added onto by a bug with the save point dialogue that caused a line of flavor text that indicated that you had to kill the Snowdrake monster to always override your kill count and make progression a little unclear. That one got fixed, but the music thing did not. I think this is an actual genuine issue with the game, as it gives the player direct, incorrect feedback in a way that feels external and not accounted for by the game. It wasn't intended to be designed this way, and it definitely always throws me off, even though I know it's coming. Secondly, Jerry. Jerry is a comic relief encounter that extends the length of other monsters' attacks. The entire thing with Jerry is that they're hated by everyone, and you can ditch them manually with other monsters. And their flavor text and dialogue is all just about being stereotypically annoying. they don't even show up in the pacifist credits with all the other monsters, because that's the entire joke. This works perfectly fine in any other playthrough, but in Geno, Jerry is present in every single formation in the back half of the area, and he takes forever to kill. It's kind of funny seeing its super high defense and the absurdity of how long it takes to kill them the first time, but it quickly crosses over into being flat out annoying and causes this segment to doubly drag on longer than it probably needed to. The illusion of me being this evil villain going around killing innocent monsters kind of breaks a bit when this one repeatedly shows up and is just obnoxious.
I mean, for all we know, that could just point towards there being more than one Jerry, which is a horrifying thought to think about. And sort of like Temmie's, where they're all sort of on the same wavelength, where all Jerrys are just exceedingly like delusional about how much people like them.
I don't feel anything about killing Jerry, and being in every single formation here drags the pace to a crawl. Remember, I don't feel bad about killing Jerry. I just feel ambivalent. Remember earlier how I said genocide was contentious? My only qualm with the pace lies here in Snowdin, basically almost exclusively because of this enemy. And I know this isn't a qualm I have with the rest of the game, because I find it to only be an issue here. Additionally, Snowdin gets a bit choicy with what rooms you can run into monsters at all. Undertale has a hidden mechanic where monsters take longer to show up on repeated encounters in the same room, something that makes you not get bombarded while exploring a room thoroughly. In Genocide, this can go directly against the player if they decide to just stay in the exact same spot the entire time, but this is a mechanic that can at least be discerned or at least worked around. Snowdin gets a bit weird, as only the final room is the one that you'll probably be doing most of your encounter grinding in, not really giving you a chance to move around because most of the rooms and all of the rooms surrounding it don't produce encounters. The encounter grinding is supposed to be mundane as a deconstruction of RPG mechanics and the way we enjoy video games as a whole, but outside of this one instance, Undertale walks an incredibly tight line right at the edge of monotony, but never actually falls into the pit. The encounters take just long enough to let you feel that growing numbness, but not quite long enough for me to ever completely clock out. This being the one exception, and a moment I think could have been done better. This is basically the only notable issue I have with Undertale at all, and thankfully, this is still a huge nitpick. I still greatly enjoy basically the entire Snowdin segment, and I adore this route as a whole, both narratively and mechanically. And I think the entire masterclass of a segment with the empty Snowdin town and the papyrus death scene far outweighs anything negative I had to say. I just wanted to note one of the only flaws I see in this game, as every single thing out here does have a flaw, and I find noting them can raise understanding of how to avoid that potential pitfall in a follow-up. And I think judging by how the weird route in Deltarune is handled, similar lessons may have been gleaned by Toby Fox himself, but I can't be sure of that. Still, I hope I was
Which, actually, thinking about it, with, the differences in the Genocide and the weird route. In the Genocide, it's very much, the main theme of it is monotony. You're going through, like, the entirety of Undertale with a cheese grater and just destroying everything you come across. But with Deltarune, so far, at the very least, in the 4 chapters we have, the only bits that actually require any quote-unquote grinding is chapter 2. That's like the inciting instant to get the weird route, and then everything else we've gotten so far has just been stuff happening in the story that's different from the normal route because you're on the weird route now. I had never really consciously thought of that before.
Finally able to explain this in a way that was cohesive, as the last few times I've attempted to explain how I feel about this, I've had some people insisting that I don't understand the game at all, or that I was just mad because I'm a speedrunner and I wanted to go fast. Notice how I haven't even mentioned that fact until now, though? Don't worry, it'll come up again at the next
What, you're a
area.
speedrunner?
The death
No.
of Papyrus marks a shift. There's basically no going back now, and at this point, the little exclamation point above Frisk's head changes to be a smiling face. You're no longer in danger or alarmed by running into a monster. You're excited, happy, because you get to take another life. Without a single word, yet again, Undertale characterizes you in a new light by just this little switch up alone. Waterfall has its music warped incredibly slowly, turning the previously majestic and mysterious track into an ominous, empty drone. There's barely any NPCs to talk to, and the previously comic relief or storytelling echo flowers are completely silent. Monster Kid, previously a happy companion, is nothing more than a progression tool now, helping you get further into the area. Even the Mad Dummy, a really off-the-walls comedy fight, is replaced with a quick kill fight against the Glad Dummy, being effortlessly dispatched instead. But by far the most striking moment in Waterfall comes with Gerson, the shopkeeper.
Oh God,
Demonstrating
Gerson.
the wisdom he's gotten over the years. After all, he's old! He actively takes advantage of the rules of the game world. He's fully aware that since he runs a shop, there is no way that you can battle him, and that he cannot be harmed here. And as such, he takes this opportunity to taunt you, belittle you, and generally just shit-talk you. This is one of my favorite details in this game.
You know what would be funny? Like, in an alternate universe somewhere, Gerson takes the whole, like, the whole shopkeeper immunity thing just a step further, and it makes it so that, you don't have the option to leave. Like, there's no exit option. So once you enter a shop, you're just stuck there. I mean, granted, you could get around that by just resetting the game, but that would be really funny if he was smart enough to do that.
He takes full advantage of the fact that this is a video game shop and that he's essentially immortal here. And hell, if him being dead in Deltarune is an indication, being here genuinely might actually make him immortal. So he gains a completely new dynamic where he can just talk shit with absolutely no fear of you. And I think this is complete genius. Everyone else up to this point has been absolutely terrified of you, so now you get a rare moment to actually get some interaction. Just another instance of Undertale utilizing the meta-narrative to the fullest and really getting everything out of the world being a video game world. Once you reach the end of Waterfall and clear it fully of any monsters, you'll notice something peculiar, a new save point at the end of this room. If you step forward, you'll turn on Monster Kid, something no other route lets you do, with the flavor text suddenly changing to first person, with the declaration that Monster Kid is simply in my way. I wanted to wait for this moment to talk about this, but as soon as you get the very first but nobody came instance in Ruins, there's a couple of instances where the flavor text and narration becomes first person, something the game otherwise basically never does outside of a joke here and there. Looking in the mirror in Toriel's house shows you that it's not you, but instead, it's me, the player's original selected name. The genocide route causes Kara, a previously off-screen entity, to start invading the flavor text and gain direct influence. It's a really interesting thing to be placed here in this route, and it's sort of an unspoken but implied explanation. At the end of the pacifist route, you can find out that Kara's body was actually taken by Toriel and buried under the flowers that you land on at the very beginning of the game. As such, their influence is kind of always with you, but doing this route and gaining determination seems to awaken them from their eternal slumber, and causes this really interesting dynamic where you start to take on their qualities. It's intentionally extremely open-ended, and there's a lot of super deep conversations between fans of this game regarding this character. But for this review, I'll stick mostly with what's in the game itself. Still, it's a very interesting dynamic and really plays around with how much you're breaking the game world by doing what you're doing. Now, the very narration is starting to transform. Someone who is long dead is being brought back, and everything feels empty and broken. But it also serves as an incredibly interesting way to gather even more insight into a character who's otherwise only really existent in the background and as part of the world building. Monster Kid is your last chance to turn back, but at this point, the flavor text is even encouraging you to move forward. With lines like, "looks like free XP," when you check them, it's almost as if you've trained the game to expect your behavior at this point, that this is normal now. And as such, you take that swing at Monster Kid, but only for them to be intercepted at the last moment by Undyne, who takes mortal damage. But in this moment, she gives you a speech. She clings on to her own determination.
Here we go.
With the weight of the world and everyone's hopes and dreams beating as one, and transforms into Undyne the Undying, the most powerful monster in the underground. This fight is cinema. Everything about it. It's tough as nails with difficult to navigate patterns. It's climactic, as this is really Monsterkind's final hope against you. It feels powerful as the game sneakily multiplies your damage in order to give you those huge RPG damage numbers you've been salivating over ever since you started gaining love. And of course, it's scored by an absolutely elite piece of music in Battle Against the True Hero, a powerful track filled with energy. But this is where you realize this track isn't for you. It's for her. Because Undertale flips the roles on you here. You're the villain, and she's the hero. You're still the protagonist of this game, but in any other story, you're the evil villain this hero has to stop. This is such a fun little reversal of roles, and it really gives this fight a lot of identity. This is the big, stereotypical clash on the bridge with the wind howling, Undyne assuming a transformation sequence right out of Dragon Ball Z, and using this ascended form of hers to fight you. And now, after testing your morality and managing to create an emotional skill check, which I had no idea was even possible, for whether or not you could kill your friends like Papyrus to get here, Undertale rips off the bandage and really ups the challenge factor. It's almost as if the game itself is directly trying to get you to stop what you were doing. Before, it was indirect by making you feel bad and filling you with dread and malevolence as you slaughtered the slowly reducing pool of monsters. But now it's direct, and this fight is quite a haymaker. But yet, Undertale, even at its most difficult, stays fair. It would have been incredibly easy for the game to veer off course into difficulty that's just pure bullshit. But every single attack here is learnable, predictable, and has patterns to memorize and adapt to. You'll continuously make progress through your attempts if you just keep at it, really just showcasing how impactful this save and load ability you have is.
Yeah, I mean, in multiple videos it's been pointed out, but I mean, like, yeah, Undyne's the most powerful monster in the Underground in this battle. But that doesn't stop the fact that, you know, you're an undying eldritch god who has the ability to manipulate time on their side.
And that you'll persist through anything at this point to see this through, even through a difficult fight. It would have been easy for the fight to have just been completely unfair, poorly designed attacks, and created impassable difficulty wall that caused players to quit out of frustration. But Undertale masterfully avoids that by crafting this fight in a way that you constantly feel like you're making progress, even when you die over and over again. In fact, this is one of the best designed fights in the entire game, and is a highlight of the entire journey to me. And I think it being designed this way is genius because it gives credence to the fact that you can continue, and that you are always making progress. You can use your meta power to learn and adapt, and the fight is designed how it is because if you can do it, then you have to be able to do it, right? If the fight was just completely impossible, then this aspect would be lost. But it's designed absolutely perfectly for this moment and fits right into the game-bending route. And defeating her is a bittersweet satisfaction. You still feel sad that you've killed your previous friend, but at this point, you're more satisfied that you defeated such a difficult challenge. And that is where Undertale wins a victory over you. It just made you happy with what you were doing. It proved itself right. You're the villain because you just took pleasure in what you did. What a moment. Hotland is similarly empty and void of anything to do besides moving forward to the core, where monster encounter rates are jacked up as they try to stop you from reaching the end. You do get a really surprisingly humorous interaction with Burger Pants, the hotel shop NPC, who just could not give less of a shit about being evil, because nothing could be worse than his capitalistic boss. Seriously, the "I can't go to hell, I'm all out of vacation days" line when you threaten him is something I say to myself regularly quite often now. It's like a top 5 line for me in this entire game.
Again, like, I'm forgetting who did it, but there's that one video of, like, Burger Pants' lines actually dubbed over and voiced, and just how, like, energetic and, like, stressed out he sounds from it is just perfect.
Gerson knew that you couldn't hurt him because of his old man wisdom and experience, but Burger Pants is just completely apathetic to the situation, and yet that gives him this unexpected aura around him that you never expect. A really fantastic subversion of expectations, especially given that the Snowden shop owner, QC, was completely horrified of you. Now, at this point, if you choose to forego the genocide route and move forward, you'll get an incredibly empty neutral ending. But the only ending in which Alphys becomes the leader of the Underground, and shows that even without you, she does have the inner strength to face her demons when push comes to shove, even if she didn't believe it before.
Oh,
It's a
that's
very
good.
interesting footnote ending, but one that I think a lot of players encountered by accidentally messing up the route at the very end. Something you may do if you misinterpret the save points, one left being about Metaton and not the final random encounter. The core area jacks up the monster encounter rate, and the usual creepy vibe is replaced by something interesting. The core music is still slowed down, but rather than feeling creepy, it almost feels like workout music instead. The game at this point knows that you're in this fully and is pushing you towards the ending you so desperately want to see. And this segment gives you a chance to flex this unmatched power against regular enemies with the most powerful weapons in the game. Usually, the empty gun is really expensive and not something you want to buy, but since you can get it for free, you finally get to wail around with the most powerful weapon in the game, dispatching monsters with 4 powerful strikes and watching the damage numbers go wild as you take out everything in one hit. Oh yeah, and the gun's pretty cool too, I guess. I'm more of a burnt pan enjoyer myself. This might be an analytical review, but hey, some things never change, okay? Eventually, you'll clear out the core of all of the enemies, and you'll come face to face with Metaton, who reveals his most powerful form,
Quote
Metaton
unquote.
Neo. But in a total expectation subversion, Neo is famous for its low defense and will get overkilled in just one hit, no matter how weak. At this point, no statistical challenge can stand in your way.
Which actually, again, thinking about it, I very much like. Again, I know the whole thing with with the monster biology is if they actually want to fight you, then they're tougher and stuff like that. If they don't want to fight you, then they're easier to defeat and stuff like that. But I don't think that same thing applies to Metaton, mostly because robot body and stuff like that. And I very much believe that if Metaton had just stayed in the square body, he would have been able to single-handedly stop Frisk. Sorry, complete brain fart there for a second. Simply because you can't damage it.
And you come into this fight expecting something similar to Undyne the Undying, even with the music track Power of Neo using the same introductory leitmotif to draw the comparison. But Metaton is dispatched almost instantly and barely even gets a one-liner off before exploding. If you do the Alfie's neutral ending, he gets some time to lecture you about you failing to be truly evil, but here, it's just one line, and that's it. The most glamorous, flashy star of the underground subverted and turned into a joke. Again, you've completely broken the game and caused it to completely break down through your actions. And more than that, I'm going off script here to say this because this was something I felt when I played the game again, but Metaton's fight notably does not, oversee Undyne's. It doesn't supersede it. That was a problem I was worried about originally, and why I think that Metaton Neo's fight being this way is really, really genius. Because if it was another big, hard, statistical fight, it would probably overshadow Undyne a bit. But no statistical challenge is going to hurt you anymore. The game has tried that with Undyne the Undying, and it failed. There is nothing that can stand in your way anymore. It would have to be something that can break the game itself. And then you reach New Home. I'm going to tackle this slightly out of order because I want to talk about the first thing in far more depth in the next segment. So for now, you talk to Flowey about the socioeconomic state of the world and the geopolitics of the underground, and then after that, you come face to face with Sans in the Judgment Hall. Sans judges you here on every single neutral ending, but this time, well, you already know where this is going. If you know anything about Undertale, it's probably this moment. The standoff with Sans is one of the most iconic moments in video games in general. And holy moly, it is an absolute masterclass of usage of Undertale's meta-narrative to craft the ultimate subversion of expectations. Undyne's battle was the peak of Undertale's RPG system. But what follows here is where Undertale truly creates an iconic, unique, and original masterpiece of a battle. Because it's not like any other fight in the game. And like he said, because of what you've done, well, you're gonna have a bad time. The fight with Sans is the best fight in the game. It uses everything in the kitchen sink, but what makes it so special is that Sans interacts with you in a way that sidesteps the game mechanics entirely and takes full advantage of your expectations. He takes the first move, unlike anyone else, and jump scares you with his most powerful attack right off the bat. Undertale understands that doing something like this only really works once, and after that, he doesn't do something like that again. So rather than being annoying, it stands out as an incredibly memorable moment. Sans dodges all of your attacks. You can't hit him. You can't use all of your strength. He literally only has one attack, one defense, and 1 HP. Statistically, he should be about as relevant as a dust particle, but he constantly avoids you, forbidding you from using the powerful 99 attack real knife that you picked up in New Home. He doesn't attack you with raw strength. Instead, he uses a unique damage method called Karma that deals damage per frame, completely sidestepping your defense. He doesn't even use traditional bullet patterns, instead taking a note from his brother's very special attack by using the Blue Soul mode to change it into more of a platformer boss instead. It is a complete subversion of everything the game does, but the game is fully aware of that, and Sans is fully aware of it as well.
Honestly, again, I've said it before, and like I wish I could find it again, but years ago, like I wonder the amount, I honestly wonder the amount of people that have done genocide routes just to fight Sans, and then afterwards they reset the game. Because, because years ago, and I've never been able to find it again, I found a fan fiction story, taking place during this fight. And once, Frisk wins, and, Sans is there dying, Frisk simply said, they start talking as, Sans is there, lying there dying. And, Frisk basically says, they went through the entire genocide route just to fight Sans. At which point, Sans watches Frisk as Frisk disappears, and then, it blacks out as, the timeline is reset. And if you knew that, this one being basically destroyed everybody you ever knew and loved simply to fight you at your best. God, honestly, that's some Dragon Ball level, a villain motivation right there.
And he taunts you intentionally with that in mind. His goal is to try to frustrate the player with his fight to get you to quit. As like I said earlier, he's aware of the existence of the resets and can use your expression to change his behavior and read you. He even jump scares you, cuts off his own introduction text in order to catch you off guard on repeat attempts just to troll you. He tracks your deaths and mocks you for each one. He even seemingly lets you spare him, only to kill you and exclaim the iconic "Get dunked on" line. And even the music subverts expectations. I mentioned how the entire soundtrack is webbed together by the use of shared leitmotifs. But Megalovania, the absolutely outstanding masterpiece of a battle track that accompanies this fight, notably shares no motifs with anything outside of a fringe split-second connection with the credits theme that some people believe exists. In fact, Megalovania isn't even from Undertale, as it was composed for Toby Fox's Earthbound Halloween hack in 2008 and was later reused for his discography on Homestuck, before eventually being used one more time for Undertale.
And again, I know there are a lot of people hoping that we hear Megalovania again in Deltarune. The most common one I've seen was that at some point, you controlling Chris will, have to fight Susie. And during that fight, Susie's theme will, morph into Megalovania. Which, I've heard a couple of renditions people have made. They sound really good. But at the same time, it sounds good, but I have no idea whether Toby would actually go for it.
Every single thing in this fight is a masterful usage of Undertale's meta-narrative and subversion of every expectation to create a one-of-a-kind, legendary boss fight. And above all else, while incredibly difficult, the fight is just so damn fun to play.
You say that again, never done never done, a genocide route, never fought him honest like this. I did fight, I did fight him in Delta Traveler, and that was horrible. I hated it.
Patterns are endlessly satisfying to memorize and learn, and getting good at this fight feels so incredibly rewarding just on the merit of being an incredibly well-designed, tough-as-nails, seemingly unfair fight that's secretly very fair under the hood, but in ways that almost consistently catch you off guard on your first sight of them. the most iconic fight in the game by a wide margin, and it earns every single accolade. Undertale is a masterpiece, but the Sans fight is the defining gameplay moment in my opinion. Everything that makes Undertale great, the character writing, the meta-narrative, the gameplay, the music, it all radiates in this one moment. The Sans fight is nothing short of absolute cinema. Eventually, after hours and dozens of attempts, you'll eventually get the better of Sans, who has one last trick up his sleeve. He knows that if the turn passes back to you, you'll win. So in an absolutely stunning moment, he decrees that it simply won't ever stop being his turn, and you'll just stand there forever until you give up. He completely analyzes the player at this point, correctly assessing that you don't care about good or evil, and you're doing this because you're curious. And just like I said earlier, just because you can do something means you have to. It's an absolutely outstanding way to frame the completionist mindset of video game players, really pushing how far you'll go to see it all. But Sans eventually falls asleep, and you continue breaking the game by literally moving the battle box over to the fight button to beat him. I'm sure you get the point by now, but this is such a comical exaggeration of the concept of constantly fighting against the very limitations of the video game that it stands out as a very notable example of it. You ambush Sans, but you catch him off guard by attacking twice. But the second attack wasn't done by you directly.
Nope.
It happens automatically, giving a very concerning glimpse of what's to come. You reach Asgore and automatically dispatch him without any input. Flowey shows up and begs for his life in a rare moment of him being terrified and scared, feeling genuine fear for the first time in God knows how long. And again, you automatically start rapidly attacking him without any input. For the first time, your control over the game has been wrested away from you. And although the outcome you reach here is probably what you wanted to see, it's still a stunning moment. You have always had the choice in your control in this game, and suddenly, it's been taken from you. The game is no longer under your control. Instead, it's under their control.
Yep, there.
The
Hi, Chara. How you
meeting with
doing?
Kara is an incredibly iconic and terrifying moment. For the first time, you're now the helpless one, facing down someone you know nothing about, as they explain how your guidance and your determination put them on this course along with you. You lose the ability to even close the game. You'd have to actually close it through Windows at this point. Your control and your escape key has been taken away from you. Eventually, Kara gives you an ultimatum. Erase the world with them, or the option to resist and not erase. But opting to try to abandon this route right at the very end has them mock you and declare, "Since when were you the one in control?" And in one of the most sudden and terrifying... And in this moment, when Kara strikes down the very game itself, the window rocks back and forth like the monsters you've struck your entire playthrough, with the game itself suffering maximum damage, the screen filled with nothing but 9s, the highest number. The game takes away the control you've relished in for its entire runtime, the one thing you were always so sure of, and literally causes the game itself to die. Rebooting Undertale at this point brings you to an empty black void. It's over. You killed everything. You broke everything. And you have transcended the boundaries of the fourth wall and have dispatched even the game itself. I will never forget how I felt the first time I saw this. Never before had I seen a game do this and just straight up forbid me from playing it again. It's an incredibly haunting moment. Just you and the wind and the void and nothing more. But this is a game you paid money for, so there is a workaround. If you wait on this screen for 10 minutes, eventually, Kara speaks to you again and allows you to return the world back after you admit that you believe yourself to be above consequences. In exchange, you give them custody of your soul. Then, the game is brought back in a completely true resetted state. The only impact selling your soul has is on repeat playthroughs of either the pacifist or genocide endings specifically. In genocide, Kara criticizes you for doing the route again, insisting you use your time in more productive ways. But in pacifist, right at the very end, they'll gain full possession of Frisk through the corrupted soul, and the game ends on a cut to black after a maniacal laugh. If you instead opt to go without Toriel, the usual postcard with your friends has them all X'd out and Frisk replaced with Kara, implying that they go on to end every single one of them with the power that you gave them.
God, again, it's just... You don't see, like... Again, like... You don't see this level of, like, quality in, like, AAA games. Like, I don't think I've seen, you know, a game like this where, like, your consequences are so substantial. Like, oh God, can you imagine if they did something like this on, like, a console where you can't access the files to delete or change, like, the little modifiers or stuff like that? Like, man, I can imagine some people would be very angry.
This consequence is permanent. There is no in-game way to undo this state. Your consequences truly will follow you around for the rest of time, except not really. The file that controls your soul being sold is not difficult to find and can be deleted manually from the game directory. I'd like to propose that I think the ability to do this can be interpreted as extended commentary on the nature of video games, that ultimately you do exist as this higher being and can manipulate everything, even the very fabric and building blocks of the game itself. Undertale calls itself a game in the game multiple times and is self-aware that it is a video game. As such, I like to interpret this moment as something Toby Fox anticipated and expected. Because
it's literal commentary.
No matter what Undertale itself tries to do, you always have a way out with your power.
Yeah.
Whether that be removing the file, deleting and reinstalling the game on consoles, or what have you. Hell, if you edit your save data to have a character name longer than 6 characters, there's even special flavor text in the menu mocking you with the line, "Easy to change, huh?" This implies that the game itself expects some degree of file editing and knowledge of the very fabric of the game from the omniscient player. And that's why I like to think this consequence avoidance through knowledge of the game's file structure is actually completely intentional design. But even if it isn't, most people won't explore enough to find this, and as such, it's an iconic moment. Congratulations, you completed Undertale. Your permanent mark of completion is your corrupted soul. That's the trophy. That's the reward. It's a full circle deconstruction of completion in video games in such an interesting, unique, and genuinely thought-provoking way. Well done, Toby. And with that, we've reached the ending of this layer of the onion. You may notice I skipped over one particular thing on the genocide route, Flowey. The next segment is going to focus on him mostly, because this is the ultimate meta-narrative pull that Undertale has up its never-ending sleeve. Do you know what a foil is? Not the thing you wrap your food in. Not that thing you remembered in high school, the factor equations in algebra. No, I mean the literary type of foil.
What?
Foil. A foil is a character that, through their comparison and contrasting with the protagonist of a literary work, highlights a specific theme or quality or trait. And through Flowey and the medium of this being a video game, Undertale creates the ultimate foil to us, the person playing the game. Join me as we dive into the core of this onion, and I get to tell you about the single best and most defining moment to me in the entire game. I said Sans' fight was the most defining gameplay moment, but this is something else. Let's talk about Flowey's chat with the player in New Home in the genocide route, how Undertale crafts a one-of-a-kind foil to the player, and how Toby Fox crafted one of the most uniquely relatable antagonists and characters in fiction. In the context of a video game world, what would the inhabitants of it feel about a player character? I asked this question earlier when talking about the deconstruction of the fourth wall through the genocide route, but Toby Fox decided to go one step further to answer that question and created Flowey. Flowey, while already a very excellent villain just from the Layer 1 perspective, gains so much more through a few interactions you can have with him, both upon completing the same neutral playthrough repeatedly, and more importantly, his final monologue during the New Home section of Genocide. I largely skipped over it the first time because I wanted to talk about it more in depth here, but the crawl through New Home in this route is one of the most incredibly unsettling moments in the game while also being extremely melancholic. The entire thing is underscored by a slowed down version of the music track Small Shock, which, while only being 2 repeating notes, does an incredible job setting the tone for the whole area. This area also does a lot to flesh out Kara in the limited amount of interactions we have with them, showcasing a lot of character through the changed narration in the area, even being colored red to imply a direct thought from them as opposed to the indirect influence before. I guess now is a pretty good time to dive more in depth into that aspect as well, as I summarized it before pretty briefly. There's a lot of deeper discussion in the fanbase about Kara's relationship with the game's narration, and I figure I would throw in my own personal interpretation as well. We learned from Flowey that Kara's body was taken by Toriel as she left Asgore, and presumably buried underneath the original golden flowers where the journey begins. As such, when Frisk arrives in the underground, Kara's essence seemingly attaches itself to Frisk and accompanies them throughout the entire adventure. I think personally that this is the case on every route. There's several instances of flavor text in the neutral and pacifist routes that showcase some level of influence from them over certain things.
Yeah, the old narrator Chara theory. Heard that before many times.
For example, when in New Home in these routes, when examining their room and specifically their own bed has a large description talking about how comfortable it is, while also subtly pointing their death, which presumably happened here, literally on their deathbed. The other bed, which belonged to Azrael, doesn't garner nearly the same amount of depth from this interaction. This kind of stuff is all over the place if you look hard enough, and in my opinion, shows an indirect influence Kara has over the entire game, as their essence is influencing various things in the narration. But in Genocide, as your determination fully reawakens them, this becomes explicitly direct, even sometimes using red text to clearly showcase this. Additionally, a lot of the text, particularly here in New Home, becomes written in first person, something Undertale basically never does outside of a few jokes. The game takes this moment to flesh Kara out just a little bit and do some world building, like confirming that they made the pink sweater in Asgore's dresser, or showing that they expect chocolate to be in the fridge and appear disappointed by the lack of it. Small details like this didn't really need to exist, but yet, Toby Fox went the extra mile to make sure that even a character like Kara, who exists indirectly for a vast majority of the runtime, still gets moments of development. It gives a really powerful sense of belonging and really deepens the world a lot, and leads to a lot of deeper theorizing and speculation from the community.
Oh,
and
yes, a lot of
awesome. Undertale is multifaceted. It's never just doing one thing at a time, and constantly has multiple interesting details that it's juggling. The game has an incredible attention to detail, and this is just another example of that. Since we're talking about community speculation anyway, I'm going to put off Flowey for a moment to take a tangent within a tangent to talk about auxiliary lore stuff. Specifically, the world building done for characters that do not interact with the story directly and serve as mysteries for the community. And, with the benefit of hindsight, a setup for the game's connection to Deltarune, the self-proclaimed parallel story. Undertale has a secret value assigned to every save file called the fun value, and it is between 1 and 100. If the number hits a certain range, certain events may play. Some of these can be comedy moments like Sans or Alfie's calling you in Snowden as a joke, but a lot of them focus on these gray NPCs known internally as goners. They make a reference to a character that has no place in the main story itself, but exists to flesh out the world further. The previous royal scientist, Dr. W.D. Gaster. What Gaster even is largely a mystery, but he's all over these hidden fun value events, almost intentionally, like a scavenger hunt. He's even got stats in the battle data section of the game, bringing up this association with the number 6, which has satanic connotations in biblical mythology. Fun value 66 in particular adds this completely random extra hallway to Waterfall.
Which, if I remember correctly, even if you do get a fun value of 66, it's still a 1 in 10 chance that the door will actually appear.
But has a further rare chance to produce this door that takes you to see this creepy character, who is largely believed to be Gaster himself by the community, or at least a piece of him. Who Gaster is, what he's done, his relationships with other people, it's not important at all to the main story of Undertale, but yet, he's here, just to have a fun thing to flesh out the world further. He
Oh,
provides
yeah.
this really cool, mysterious intrigue for dedicated fans to speculate about, and I think this adds a lot of fun overall to the game, no pun intended there. These little breadcrumbs hinting at something deeper really fleshes out the mysteriousness of this world, that even though you are this all-powerful player figure, you can't quite know every mystery. There's a
For all we know, at this moment in time, Gaster only exists in the mind of Toby. And as long as he's there, he is completely unavailable for us to find in the slightest.
Goner NPC version of Monster Kid that, while they don't mention Gaster like the others, talks about how it feels to live in a world where you never existed, implying that nobody in this universe even remembers or knows who Gaster is anymore. It makes him feel totally otherworldly in presentation, only having these little pieces of him, like his name, his potential design, his previous role, and even a theme song. And I feel like this is extremely deliberate, as he was shattered across time and space. His very existence is now carried on through, well, essentially various Easter eggs. They turned Easter eggs, an inherently video gamey thing, into a character, which is just another instance of Undertale turning video gamey things into fleshed out components in the story. It's such a cool thing to be included, even if it doesn't affect the main story or main characters in the slightest, and I wanted to at least talk about it a bit, and I felt now was the best time. Okay, so back to the other half of New Home. I praised how the atmosphere of this area and how it uses this moment to flesh out Kara a bit, but the real meat and potatoes of this area is the
He's Flowey.
gigantic monologue Flowey gives you as you explore the place. Flowey reveals the extent of his backstory at this point and explores how, before Frisk arrived, he was the one who had control over the save and load system. This is something you can find out from him in a regular playthrough as well, after killing Toriel and reloading to spare her. But this is the first time he talks about the impacts using this power had on him, and it is astonishing. Flowey, in the form he is in now, is incapable of feeling true love. He tries as hard as he can, but he just can't do it. No amount of time spent with Asgore or Toriel was able to change this. Due to his existence of being trapped in a soulless vessel, he has lost the ability to truly connect with other people around him, and it brings him to the point of suicide, where he reveals he attempted to end his own life because he didn't want to live like that. And that was the exact moment he discovered that his determination could allow him to, well, not terminate and keep on living. That is what determination is in this universe.
God, that's it. It's that little bit of lore that you and I had forgotten about. The fact that, Flowey tried to kill himself. And that's how he discovered he had this power. Like that, like in or out of context, that is a horrifying to think of.
For all, the will to keep persisting even after death. Using his powers, Flowey attempts to help everyone around him and find a way forward, but is unable to, no matter what he does. He tries every combination of every single event he can think of, but is unable to progress and unable to achieve his goal. He can't free everybody. He can't get the souls, and there just isn't any way for him to leave the underground in any capacity. Eventually, his curiosity about killing people instead gets the better of him, and he begins doing it. Originally, it was difficult for him, but it became routine and even satisfying to him. But yet, that didn't yield any new results either. In his own words, he's read every book, he's burned every book. Lines of dialogue, sets of numbers. He's seen them all. In this moment, Toby Fox has managed to do the unthinkable. He has created a perfect foil to the player. Flowey, while it might appear that he's just a cartoonishly evil character, is us. He is the same as us, whether we want to admit it or not. This is the ultimate player foil. Allow me to explain. Flowey due to in-universe reasons, is unable to form a real, meaningful connection with the people around him. He cannot truly feel love for the characters around him, and eventually, throughout his hundreds, thousands, who knows how many saves and reloads, everything around him becomes mundane, repetitive. The characters around
It starts feeling fake, as if, the people around him aren't real. Geez, wonder how that could connect to the player in any way.
him become like NPCs in a video game, always saying the same things, responding the same way to something, becoming increasingly predictable as he tries every single possible combination of options that the world allows him to perform. That is exactly the same as the player. Think about it. We are real-life people, and we are aware that these are characters in a video game. We cannot form a truly deep, meaningful bond with these characters as equals because we exist on a plane outside of them. They are a work of fiction. We might love the characters, love their jokes, love their personalities, but it's not true love. Not the way we love other human beings around us.
It reminds me of an SCP I've talked about before, where like they discover, in universe there you have different narrative layers. Where like in a narrative layer, like the most powerful being in a narrative layer it can still not hold a candle to like even the weakest of like the narrative layer above it. And you had this one character who who was made into a being that was you had this one person who was turned into a being that would incrementally keep increasing the narrative layer he was in by the literal author of the article. So like us, being real people are more powerful than anything in the SCP universe, but anything in the SCP universe would be more powerful than like something on their TV, like a show or anything like that. It's a really fun and interesting concept like that.
Friends, family, real people. At the end of the day, they are NPCs. They will repeat the same lines again and again. They are just lines of dialogue, sets of numbers, and eventually, if you keep playing the game, you'll see them all. A curious player will eventually try to kill them, to see what happens, to play that new genocide route that your friend told you about, to see what happens if you kill certain combinations of characters, to get a new ending, to see a line of dialogue you hadn't seen yet, to see a detail you didn't know about, maybe even doing the exact same thing as before because you were bored that day and wanted to play one of your favorite games again. Maybe you wanted to get to a particular boss fight, see it again for yourself, experience it again. Maybe you're a speedrunner and you want to play the game over and over again to see if you can get a faster time. Maybe you want to see every little detail the game has to offer, so you play it again and again and again, over and over and over. Lines of dialogue, sets of numbers. Eventually, you will see them all. The barrier that you had originally put up around yourself to not hurt these characters, the thing that made it so hard to even attempt the genocide route in the first place, it all eventually dissolves away, and in its place, you may even feel satisfied with yourself. You did it. You beat the hardest bosses in the game. You spent 5 hours trying to kill Sans, and you finally did it. Brow covered in sweat, and you pat yourself on the back.
Again, I haven't said it in a while, but I am very proud of myself of never having done that. I generally don't like violence or evil routes just in general. I'm not that kind of gamer.
You take satisfaction in it inherently, just like Flowey. To the characters of this world, to the in-universe inhabitants, you two are no different. And I think this is absolutely a masterclass of writing and one of the most creative and interesting dynamics I have ever seen. Something that truly takes advantage of the medium in a way that just cannot be done in others. The mirror between the player and Flowey is incredibly deep writing that only serves to further enhance my appreciation for this game. And as time has gone on, that connection has only become more firm. I personally largely make content about this game. I do speedruns, I do all sorts of stuff. I replay this game constantly. And yet, Undertale accounts for my existence and behavior and uses it to reinforce a connection with a character that, on paper, should be completely unrelatable for players.
A living
Flowey is
flower.
a sociopathic menace that revels in hurting others, but yet his scenario and how he has come to view the world as nothing more than a game is inherently relatable. I don't even choose to relate to it. It is an immutable facet of reality. Undertale is a video game and I am the player. Those are objective facts that cannot be denied, and as such, I share a relationship with this antagonistic force because his circumstances force him to view the world around him in the same way I view his world, a game. This connection only deepens with time. The more videos I make, the more speedruns I do, the more I play the game again and again and again, the more I gain appreciation for this aspect of the game's amazing writing. And yet, even with this unbelievably rich concept, Undertale does not dwell on it for that long, and largely leaves it open to further interpretation by the player, as this whole New Home sequence is only about 5 to 10 minutes long before reaching the Sans fight. Undertale has this magical pace where it constantly plays with deeper questions like this, and yet it never dwells on them or make them feel stale via elaboration. It lets you do that part yourself, or as part of a deeper conversation with your friends in the community. It is absolutely excellent. I cannot state how much this one singular interaction means to me, and how I think it's some of the coolest, best writing I've ever seen in a piece of media. This isn't even including the part where Flowey pokes fun at people who couldn't actually reach this part themselves, either from the difficulty of Undying the Undying or because they couldn't actually get themselves to kill the characters. He directly calls out those players for watching footage of something they couldn't do themselves. In one of the game's most iconic lines, many games after this point have had similar fourth wall breaks, but this feels like one of the only times Undertale breaks the fourth wall in a way that goes further than just talking to the player or acknowledging their existence, and reaches them even when they're watching gameplay footage of someone else. This kind of stuff can get really stale really quickly if it's overdone, but Toby knew to keep it locked to just this one moment, and I really appreciate that.
God, I mean, just like, how depressing is it when you see everything around you just as playthings? Nothing meaningful, nothing permanent, just things to be played with and destroyed. God, honestly, like, Flowey is horrifying.
Of course, the parallels go further with the more obvious stuff, like him literally having the save and load ability just like we do, even mentions of various interactions he had with Papyrus and Sans during the repeated neutral endings. He, at one point, will even speak about how Sans was a massive pain for him, which is one of your only hints that you can even fight the guy at all in any ending. This stuff is a little bit more on the nose when it comes to parallels, but it just increases the depth of the character to the extreme. Flowey might not have as much screen time as others, but the depth of character he provides and the exceptional amount of presence he has is fantastic. A one-of-a-kind antagonist for a one-of-a-kind video game. So,
Oh, there's the onion.
We finally reached the end of our journey through this onion.
What's going on with
Undertale
the
is a
onion?
special, once-in-a-lifetime experience. It means so much to me, and so much to countless people across the world. It touched the hearts of many. It created some of the most iconic and memorable characters, music, and scenarios in recent memory. Sans, in particular, is so recognizable at this point that he's made it into Super Smash Bros. As a costume. Megalovania even got played for the Pope at one point. I mean, that's just goodness.
Yeah,
I barely
it's still
even
very
elaborated
weird.
on this during the video, but I want to put it here at the end of the video. Undertale was a landmark game for representation. Many people's first exposure to groups of people who are different from them came from this game, and it absolutely nailed the execution. Undertale so effortlessly includes prominently queer characters in the narrative in a way that feels so incredibly organic, and this was such an important step for many people. I've met so many people who discovered themselves because they played this game, or found themselves strongly relating to one of the characters. Hell, this game basically introduced me, a fairly socially awkward and generally boxed-in teenager at the time, to the concept of non-binary individuals through characters like Napstablook. And lo and behold, here I am, years later, openly non-binary and truly happy with my own identity for the first time in my life. This aspect of the game is so incredibly important, but yet Undertale never revels in it. It just treats their existence as a completely natural thing in such a seamless way. The game becoming hugely popular never once changed this approach. But a lot of times, when something becomes as beloved and popular as this game, it's easy to lose sight of why that thing became popular in the first place. And the reason I wanted to make this video, I wanted to really write down what this game means to me, and why I feel like it's so special, incredible. And I hope after this absolute marathon of a video, you can appreciate the game like I do, too, because Undertale is nothing short of one of the greatest games of all time, and a landmark of this generation. Toby Fox crafted a timeless, incredible masterpiece that will go on to influence millions of people now and in the future. And for that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to Toby and Temmie and the entire Undertale team for creating a game that changed my life, for creating such a brilliant and incredible game in general, and for continuing to create such incredible and inspiring works of art that bring myself and millions of other people incredible happiness. And I want to say thank you to all of you as well. Not just for sticking through this absolute endurance test of a video, but for the incredible amount of support I've gotten over the years to the point where I can even make a video like this. Thank you, every single one of you. And with that, I hope you all have a great night, and take care.
God, if it wasn't already said enough, Undertale is a masterpiece. And as it's shaping up, Deltarune looks to be like it'll be just as good, if not better. But at the same time, like, I don't think anything will ever really be as, like, monumental as Undertale was. Because, Deltarune's turning out to be really good. And it has the quality and everything to back it up. But it came with the expectation. It was another game by Toby Fox, the creator of Undertale. When Undertale was released, Undertale didn't have that. It became popular purely through word of mouth. Like, I know Toby had, a bit of a fan base before that. I mean, I had never heard of him, but, it was his work on, like, Homestuck and his various, like, ROM hacks and stuff like that. But, like, nothing before then had the absolutely, like, monumental, like, scale that Undertale reached. And it truly is something special. I was going to use the word was, but no, it still is. But yeah, that's definitely going to be it for now. So yeah, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.